Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rusudan Kemularia, Head of the Tax Inspectors Without Borders Secretariat. Welcome everyone to the first session of OECD's Tax and Development Days. TIWB helping developing countries mobilize tax revenues and build capacity in 2022. We're pleased to welcome our esteemed speakers to talk about the OECD UNDP joint initiative. So before we invite our speakers, some logistics, please be informed that event is open to media. During the session, if you would like to submit questions to the Secretariat or to the speakers, please send this via chat to Dr. Amna Khalifa, our Project Manager at TIWB Secretariat. So we will endeavor to respond via chat or at the end of this session. So I would like now to ask the speakers and TIWB Secretariat, Paris, New York, to turn cameras on for a group photo. Thank you.
Thanks, Rusudan. So we'll just ask all of the speakers. Great. We'll give you a second to turn your camera on. Wonderful. So on 3, we can go ahead and take a picture. All right, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. If you're not speaking in this session, please turn your camera on.
Thank you. I think we can start, right? Brilliant. Thank you. So I see the significant number of participants. Thank you very much for joining us today. Quick update about TIWB statistics and progress so far, and then we will invite our esteemed speakers to reflect on a few aspects, and I'm sure we will have a very productive discussions today. So Tax Inspectors Without Borders is a joint initiative of the OECD and UNDP, which embeds tax experts in developing countries' tax administrations to provide a practical hands-on assistance on real audit cases and related international tax issues by using learning by doing approach. To date, TIWB programs span 53 jurisdictions with 54 completed and 49 current programs, including 20 South-South programs. To respond to the particular challenges of delivering technical assistance during the pandemic, TIWB prioritized remote assistance, which allowed operations to continue effectively. Since 2012, TIWB and TIWB style audit assistance, including anonymized case work conducted during a joint workshop with the African Tax Administrations Forum, the OECD, and the World Bank Group, has led to impressive results in terms of the increased tax revenues and tax assessments in participating countries. A total of 1.6 billion in additional tax revenues collected through TIWB programs across Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, as well as Latin America and Caribbean. TIWB has traditionally focused on providing assistance on the complex transfer pricing audit, but the same model of hands-on assistance is equally applicable to other types of tax audit and investigation. The TIWB model has been expanded to cover criminal tax investigations, a crucial element in the global fight against illicit financial flows. The initiative is also exploring opportunities for pilot programs on automatic exchange of information and taxation of natural resource contracts. digitalization of tax administrations, and finally, taxation and the environment. Throughout the COVID-19 crisis, the pursuit of the TIWB program would not have been possible without the ongoing commitment of the TIWB partners, roster experts, and without support of our donors. Now let's start with the most exciting part of our sessions, and I'm thrilled to invite 4 our speakers today, and I will start with Mr. John Christensen, the Tax Inspectors Without Borders governing board member. John Christensen is a development economist and was co-founder and director of Tax Justice Network International Secretariat, based in London. His current area of expertise is tax haven and their impact on international development. Mr. John, we're pleased to have you today as a speaker, and you were one of the founders of the TIWB idea. So I would like to ask you your reflections, and mainly they ask the question, how far do you think the initiative has come from its inception? Thank you. Over to you, Mr. John.
Well, greetings, Rizadan, and greetings to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm delighted to be able to join you, even if it's only virtually for now. So the core idea behind Tax Inspectors Without Borders was first discussed between me, representing civil society at that time, and national tax authorities across many countries. And these talks were happening between 2008 and 2010, so over a decade ago. And that's when we first explored the needs of developing countries and how best to put them into the driving seat of this expert capacity building effort. Now, at that time, we had 3 core goals in our minds. Firstly, we knew this would be an international initiative. It would need to be organized by major multilateral agencies like OECD and UNDP. But crucially, the host developing countries would be they would determine their needs, and they would have control over the delivery of the expert capacity building support. So this was right at the forefront of our thinking. Now, I think that this need to ensure that our work is seen to be a collaborative effort led by the needs identified by host country tax administrations has been crucial to our success over the last few years. And I think that we have been entirely successful in delivering on this goal and ensuring that we are addressing the very specific needs of each of the host countries with whom we work. Now, the second core goal that we identified was to build capacity to support programs in as wide a range of host countries as was practicable, and covering as many languages also as practicable. Now, to achieve this, we needed an expert secretariat team that could work with the host country tax administrations to identify their needs, and then to match experts from our roster to meet those identified needs. And we set an initial target of 100 programs, and I think we have delivered on this. Over 103 programs have either been completed or in some cases are still underway. And of those 103 programs, they have covered 53 countries, covering the Caribbean area, Latin America, Africa, Eastern Europe, and Asia. Now, when you consider the challenge of setting up a new international initiative of this type, with all the political complexities of providing external expert support to national tax administrations, this has been a remarkable success story, all the more remarkable when you bear in mind that the COVID pandemic has restricted our international mobility, and required us to deliver so much of our work on a virtual basis. And finally, the third core goal that we had in mind when we discussed the creation of Tax Inspectors Without Borders was for the program to be able to address tax capacity building across as wide a range of industry sectors as possible. Now, this has been a crucial component of being able to meet the needs of tax administrations that we aim to support. And especially bearing in mind that the different approaches that are needed to audit across sectors as diverse as tourism or oil and gas or horticulture, farming, banking and finance, minerals extraction and others. This has been a complex task to deliver on. Now, again, I think we have made considerable progress since our inception towards meeting this goal. And there's clearly scope for widening the range of work we carry out to include other sectors. But this is always and will always be led by the needs of the host country tax administrations and our capacity to meet those needs.
Thank you very much, Mr. John. I think that was really interesting to our audience to hear how the TIWB started and why it was so successful. And you very brilliantly laid out the three of the main objectives. And most importantly, that TIWB is a demand-driven initiative, and we focus on the tax administration's requests and then their needs. So thank you very much. We'll come back to you. So if the time will allow, and we definitely will have a Q&A sessions, and I'm sure there will be questions which you would like to address. So please stay with us. I'd like to invite Mr. Valerio Barbantini. Mr. Valerio is the Deputy Director General at Italy's Tax Administration. He also serves as the Director of Taxpayers Compliance and Enforcement Division. Mr. Valerio, the Italian G20 presidency has shed light on the importance of capacity building and tax and development work. So I would like to ask you, what is the Agenzia delle Entrate strategy to bolster base erosion and profit shifting implementation, and how do tax inspectors without borders programs fit into this strategy? Thank you. Mr. Valerio? Floor is yours. We cannot hear you. So we can, I think, now invite another speaker, and I hope that the technical difficulties will be resolved before the Valerio can respond on my question. So now I kindly invite Ms. Asma, Deputy Commissioner General of Taxation, Maldives Inland Revenue Authority. So it's an honor to have you, Ms. Asma, today, and the representative of the host administrations who are the main beneficiaries of our programs. So Ms. Asma has wider experience with the tax administration, previously serving as Director General for Planning and Development and Director of Technical Services and Planning. Just to remind everyone, so we started the TIWB program with Maldives in 2018, and currently we have two programs. One program focused on the transfer pricing audit, another on the criminal tax investigations. So it's critical for us to hear from the host administration perspective. So dear Asma, so could you please reflect and answer the question, what progress has been achieved since the start of the TIWB support at MIRA? So what are the key results achieved under the programs and expectations for the future? Thank you. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Rustan, and a very good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to all participants. As Rustan has mentioned, we are in this program since 2018, and I would like to thank the TIWB Secretariat for providing this opportunity for Maldives to intervene this platform. And we have launched 2 assistant programs. The most recent one commenced during 2020 2021 and the midst of a semi-lockdown, and whilst most of our teams were working from home, although we have managed to successfully carry out the meetings without delays. And our teams have found the programs very helpful. These programs have not only assisted our audit teams, but the current program that is ongoing with the expert from New Zealand. Extensive training have been conducted with MIRA technical and international relations teams as well. With the limited exposure MIRA team have in international taxation issues and the implementation of best practices, these trainings are helping the teams in application of income allocation rules in practice. We expect that this would massively contribute to the tax impact analysis and assessment as well. We do have several other international organizations that assist us with enhancing several other functions of MIRA. But what is different with the TIWB mission is that the experts are involved in depth discussions with the teams and reviewing issues in actual cases that audit teams are working on while the audit is ongoing. And unlike other assistance projects, which are usually carried out for 3 weeks period, TIWB mission are carried out for extended periods. This is very helpful for auditors as audits, as in Maldives, audits are required to be completed within a 2-year period, and TIWB assistance gives a head start to the cases that are being worked on. I'm positive that what the teams are learning from the ongoing mission will be applied to their work in future periods as well. Apart from the results achieved in assistance programs, I would like to note that all the review and feedback provided by the consultants in the current programs are documented. Having such documentations are vital for MIRA, as could always refer back and use it as guidance materials and for future international trainings, internal trainings. And if we look at the numbers, the total tax assessed for the previous program was 2.8 million, and 60% of the assessed tax has been already collected by MIRA. We have not analyzed any reporting figures for the current program as of yet, although we are hopeful that current program will also yield good results. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think it was very interesting to hear from you that why the TIWB is such beneficial, because the experts provide hands-on practical assistance, and you're saying that this is where the local auditors can benefit much from this approach. And and you as mentioned, so there is a tax assessment 2.8, and the current programs, which is not concluded yet, right? So with the current program, it's difficult to predict what will be the results, but the main objective is to build the audit capacity with the administrations, and we're confident that the initiative can help and support the MIRA on the current and ongoing upcoming programs. Thank you, and if the time will allow, Ms. Asma, I will come back to you with further questions. So now I would like to check if Mr. Valerio can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
and apologies.
No, apologies for without further ado, I would say, first of all, Rosulan, thank you so much for inviting us to this very important meeting. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And getting back to your question was about the strategy of the Italian Revenue Agency in implementing the base erosion and profit shifting and how the TIWB fits into this overall strategy. Thank you for this question, because I do really think that there is, of course, a strict connection between the implementation, the administration, the actual administration of the BEPS rules, and the need, especially for developing countries, and not only for developing countries, to share experience on how to practically apply this very complex set of rules. I have to admit that I have a conflict of interest here because I do totally agree with what John Christensen said before. I'm personally a huge supporter, a huge fan of the TIWB because in implementing and in making these rules effective, it is not only important the theoretical framework, which is already complex and complicated, but once you have set that out, it's even more important to make sure that tax administrations in general, so developed countries, emerging countries, transitioning countries, developing countries, whatever is the level of capacity of your administration, that you make sure that these rules are administrable, and therefore there is a huge need for support. There is a huge need for knowledge sharing, and again, this is not only an issue for developing countries. Also, developed countries every day in their day-to-day activities, we need to solve very important and complex issues. So, having said that, we of course needed to implement, for example, the anti-hybrid rules. We needed to amend our internal legislation, domestic legislation for transfer pricing in order to move from this kind, let me say, formalistic approaches to a more substantive approach in order to understand what multinationals are really doing, where the value is created, not just simply allocating a risk somewhere and intangible somewhere else based on paper. So we think that maybe we could do more. When I say we, the G20, OECD, and then the inclusive framework, maybe we could do more. But what has been done is for sure an important step forward in order to shift from a world where these now they say the old-fashioned aggressive tax planning is recalled, cannot find any more space. TIWB in our opinion is an excellent platform to make sure that this kind of cooperative and knowledge sharing can be efficient and effective. Of course, it is quite resource intensive. We are very keen. We have developed donor, not receiving countries, sorry, as participating countries. We have launched several TIWB projects, and I'm very glad also to announce, and Rusudan of course has helped us a lot, that we have for example, in one specific technical assistance, support assistance, whatever you call it, with Georgia, which is your country actually, so there is a great coincidence here. Georgia has made impressive, a huge step forward over the years, over the various director generals, the various ministers. The tax officials of the GRS have always been focused in trying to develop their capacity. And recently we had a technical assistance on APA, on the actual, first on the design and on sharing our knowledge on the APAs. And one idea that we had with you, with Ben Dickinson and with GRD, and was, why don't we use a kind of TIWB 2.0, not only focused, not necessarily on the audits. Why don't we support the tax officials on the actual conduct of an APA? One thing that, and I think that John can remind one great and sensitive issues in relation to the APA, and was that for developing countries, APA could be a challenge, could be an opportunity, but also a challenge, because if you compare, your capacity with the capacity of a developed country with a long-lasting tradition of APAs, maybe the agreement could or a mutual agreement procedure, of course, which is the same, might not be the same. So we think the idea is that if a country that had faced similar problems can help tax officials, and in order to how to place the right questions, how to interpret some kind of structures, can give a great benefit, and it is and we think that it's no different from a TIWB in the space of an audit activity.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mr. Valerio. It's great so that you emphasize, all the work you do, and especially you see the practicality and the critical role of the TIWB in complementing to the broader work which is done under G20, OECD, base erosion and profit shifting. So definitely you rightly emphasize that this is a broader, the platform where the partner administrations can benefit as well, right? So it's like a peer-to-peer learning process. And we've seen this through our programs. And currently we have 20 partner administrations who are supporting TIWB programs, but also benefiting from this work, sharing the experience and knowledge. So in different aspects of international tax, which include the transfer pricing, APAs, and MAP, and all other, the issues. So thank you very much. We try to come back to you. With other questions, please bear with us. So now I kindly want to invite Ms. Alisa Chakar, resident representative of the UNDP Cambodia. Ms. Alisa held various management positions with UNDP and crisis, post-crisis, and complex development context. Namely in Tunisia, Honduras, Syria, the regional center in Cairo, the East Timor. So Ms. Alisa, so it's a pleasure to having you today. So, and before I give you a floor, just to mention the instrumental role of the country offices while conducting the TIWB work on ground. So we've seen through our programs that UNDP country office provided huge support during the programs we deploy on ground, and mainly technical support, while our OECD and roster and partner experts provide the tax expertise on ground. So could you please talk about how the UNDP country offices are helping in the implementation of the TIWB programs on ground, and maybe bring examples on Cambodia or beyond. Thank you. Of course, yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in this interesting discussion. We as UNDP appreciate really the commitment of the partner and host organizations, but particularly also we value the partnership with the OECD on the Tax Inspector Without Border initiative. Personally, I had the pleasure of collaborating with the tax inspectors in Honduras and now in Cambodia. The project on criminal tax investigation supported by El Servicio de Administración Tributario de México was completed in Honduras. In Cambodia, the focus on tax audit is ongoing and is supported by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs from the UK. Practically speaking, UNDP facilitates on the ground local knowledge and relationship. This means that UNDP country offices contribute their local knowledge, diagnostics, and assessment of the national context, highlighting political economy, opportunities, and threats to the inspectors or to our partners. They also offer the entry point to government entities, having been a trusted partner for decades, fostering connections and relations of trust and common understanding, which are important for this, support and exchange of knowledge. This has been proven particularly important during the pandemic due to travel restrictions, where UNDP Cambodia facilitated the interaction between the tax inspectors, experts, and the General Department of Taxation. We also facilitate an enabling environment. Also linked to the pandemic, UNDP Cambodia liaised directly with the General Department of Taxation's team and kept this fluid relationship with, and procured necessary licenses to enable local auditors to participate in regular virtual meetings with the technical inspectors experts. Building on the work with tax administrations via the Tax Inspectors Without Border program, UNDP usually supports the countries to identify and to shape their also financing for development. So in Cambodia, our potential support after this work with the tax inspectors is done may include assisting the Ministry of Economy and Finance in raising awareness on the transfer pricing requirements to improve voluntary compliance and facilitating dialogue and insights on business and advisory firms' perceptions on compliance and tax issues, so that the work that has been initiated and done by the tax inspectors is optimized and is built upon to really, participate to the development agenda. I forgot to say that we value this initiative, this partnership with the tax inspectors, because we see it as an accelerator for development and for reaching the SDGs. Finally, UNDP Cambodia's portfolio includes numerous programs and initiatives in the field of energy, environment, health, social protection, and finance. And the country office is working to create synergies between the tax inspectors and SDG-related fiscal policy work by facilitating and integrating the streams of work for achieving Cambodia's National Strategic Development Plan and Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Alisher. So unfortunately, I was not able to see you, but I think there's an issue with video, but thank you very much for your reflections. And definitely, you rightly pointed out that one of the instrumental role of the country office is the advocacy role and ensure the smooth implementation of the programs on ground. And especially during the pandemic, we've seen that the country office are instrumental and in both in Honduras and Cambodia. So there was a support provided by the COs. And most importantly, I think it's important aspect that we help countries mobilize resources to achieve the SDGs. And here, I think where this the partnership of the UNDP and OECD is really illustrates and demonstrates the importance of doing these things hand in hand. So I will just now open the Q&A session. There will be questions, and then respond direct them to our speakers, or if it's secretariat related questions. So I might ask my team members to respond. So now we open the Q&A session. Please, I encourage you to use this opportunity to raise hands or submit questions via the chat. So, don't see any hands raised. Okay, maybe, yes, I see. I see Tony raised his hand. Mr. Tony, please. Can we unmute?
Yeah. Thank you, Risidan. Sorry, I was having a slight problem unmuting. It's a question that arises from something that Valerio was saying, and maybe in some respects I would address my question to him, talking about the possibility of TIWB supporting officials on APAs. I think that's a very noble ambition, and it's certainly something that comes up in discussion with some of the countries who HMRC has been working with. But I wonder if there is something that's seen as a potential conflict of interest, because whilst when we're talking about subjects like transfer pricing and illicit financial flows, we know that we have a common problem in, if you like, multinationals being our opponents in this. But in APA programs, would one country helping another be considered to be sufficiently neutral? So if, for example, Brazil were trying to negotiate an APA with the US. I know that situation won't arise, but if they were, and they were and Brazil was receiving advice from the UK, would the US not think, well, the UK has its own axe to grind, it has its own situation to defend, and that the kind of neutrality we see in other programs would potentially be undermined?
Thank you, Tony.
Can I
Brilliant
reply?
question. May I ask Valerio to respond on this, and maybe other speakers? Just Valerio.
Sure. Thank you. Good to see you, Tony. So great to see you again. And thank you for this very. This is a very excellent and an important question. You are totally right. There is a risk that while supporting another country, for example, we had other TIWB, for example, in the anti-fraud or on how to tackle aggressive tax planning schemes, and therefore, of course, this notion of neutrality is actually out of scope, is not applicable. However, for example, in the area of transfer pricing, which is one of the probably if not the most important area where APAs or MAP would apply, there is of course this risk of actually potentially not being neutral, because of course what we are talking here is how to allocate taxable income and in relation to treaty partners, and therefore, however, we think that while since this support is delivered by a technical which is the revenue agency is not we are separate from the Minister of Finance, and therefore the Italian Revenue Agency needs to be sure that the application of the arm's length principle is consistent with the international standards. Just to make you an example, if for example, you have a case of, for example, of a contract manufacturer in Georgia, and the treaty partner is, on the other side, you have the principal in UK. I guess that the support that Italy in that case can give to Georgia is on how to handle the APA, how to make sure that the process is efficient, what are the right questions to ask to the taxpayer, how to deal with the transfer pricing documentation, how to deal with the benchmark analysis, all those things. And we do think that apart from an ethical standpoint, I would say that the neutrality is embedded in the way you are approaching the case, because there is not any possibility, for example, to handle such a case and saying, okay, in this case, I would treat this contract manufacturer in one manner, as opposed to how I would treat this contract manufacturer if you had the opposite situation, whether the principal was in Georgia and the contract manufacturer is in the UK. To make a long story short, this is exactly the approach that we have been trying to adopt when we started with our APA, and also looking at the other countries that had implemented these procedures first. And we needed to avoid to have the eye on the prize, to look at the result. The important thing was to be as much as neutral as possible, because if you adopt a non-international standard kind of approach, what if the next day you have another case from another multinational with another, maybe with the same treaty partner, in reverse? You need really to approach the TTP in a neutral way, because otherwise you would incur into I would say unjustified conclusions in the same case, with the only difference that the tested party would be in the other country. So we think that there is a risk, of course. We need to be very transparent, and what the receiving country might have is to ask you. I wouldn't say how to perform a benchmark analysis, because they have already get a lot of support on this kind of stuff, but more on how to handle the case. And with a due respect, I think we hear from the first interactions that also the countries had with their business representatives, that they feel more, I would say, they would trust more the revenue administration, whether there is a kind of third eye looking on what they're doing, because maybe now we made the case of UK, for example, as the other three partners. Maybe there would be reasons that might justify, for example, the position of UK, because looking at that position with international standards, you might also support the Georgians, saying, hey, probably this. So again, there is not, of course, a unique one-size-fits-all approach. There is not a unique answer. There is this risk, but for the application of the arm's length principle, in my opinion, cannot be, adopted with the different views, depending on the price, depending on the outcome, depending on the profit.
Thank you, Valerio. I think that was a really brilliant response, and I understand it's very tricky aspect of this work, and I think the impartiality and neutrality is a key and important. And I think the most important is trust between the tax administrations, which has been through different programs. And I think so. We have a few examples in Botswana, and so now upcoming with Georgia. So I think. So there are risks there definitely, which to be taken into account, and I think the tax administrations are there to mitigate this. I don't know if Mr. John or Ms. Asma would like to add anything on what already is said. No. Okay, brilliant. So I see that there are other hands raised. And
excuse me, Rusludan, just yes. One point, because Tony has entered a very interesting, and I completely agree with this point. He wrote something in the chat box here, and I just read it. He said, thanks, Valerio, agree that there is a lot of scopes for providing support on the principle. I think this would be similar with the mutual agreement procedure. Advice could go as far as position papers, but I think it would be hard to enter the final negotiation process. I do really agree. I think that this is a very good way to summarize, to better summarize, especially in English, what I
indeed
personally had in mind. Indeed, so that's a good
indeed.
Point.
Indeed, thank you very much for covering this topic. So I see there are a few hands raised, so maybe I will ask Jose to ask the question.
Many thanks, Chairs. In fact, my question is about taxation in digital economy. I can read in the report of Tax Inspector at Border. It's one of the challenges for the next step. And my question is, what will be the challenge to support the implementation of taxation of digital economy, especially Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 in developing countries? Many thanks, Chair. Nice to see you.
So thank you, Jose. Indeed, that was, I think this is the new chapter in international tax, a new era for everyone. So I would like to, I don't know, ask our panelists, speakers, if they want to reflect. I don't know if it's John or Asma would like to. So if this is not the case, so indeed, you know, that it's a huge work is done with, with the partners, and so agreement was reached among, the members, but there are still a lot of work has to be done in terms of the materializing all the things, and the TIWB's role here is clear, so we can use our current mandate, which is providing hands-on assistance. So I don't think that we will deviate from our current niche. So we think that there will be room for the initiative to support developing countries. It's a huge area where the countries will need assistance to materialize all these rules when it comes to the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 solution. So, and as we are designing now these rules together with the countries, so we're very closely observing and studying the opportunities for developing countries. And here again, for these international tax and for this digitalization of tax economy, I think definitely TIWB can help and facilitate the countries to implement these new rules. But I think it's early at the stage as we're designing these concrete rules and commentaries and so this instrument. So we're together with our host administration. So it's demand-driven initiative, right? This kind of assistance request will come to the TIWB will definitely help to address the challenges they might have and help to build the capacity in order to materialize and implement the new rules. So I see that there is a hand raised by Said Munir. So please. Sorry if I pronounce your name. Or maybe in duty. Thank you.
Hello. 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 Hello, please, could you hear me out?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thanks for the webinar. I would actually like to know about the digital economy, since it's becoming actually really innovative work task nowadays. I wanted to know how reliable it will be in the taxation implementation, mostly in sub-Saharan countries.
Thank you very much. Very important and very interesting question. So I don't know if, thank you. If Valerio, you would like to, as the Italia is the party to this big agreement. So if you would like to address this question.
Yes, even though of course it's a quite complex question for the reasons that you have correctly explained. We are as this collective efforts in order to address originally to address the digital economy, but of course now we have apparently the standard is around the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 that has absorbed the original Action 1 of the BEPS project. I'm not sure I'm the right person to receive this question for one reason, because Italy is one of the few countries that had implemented a digital service tax. And therefore, from our perspective, all our conditions being equal, I might talk about this unilateral tax that has been implemented, that we are managing. Of course, the scope is quite restricted, is in line with the proposal directives of digital service tax, and therefore there would be a kind of, there would be a kind of, in theory, of space to share our knowledge on and experience on these digital service tax. However, it is a quite controversial issue because Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, or better, the consensus with the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 was such that once they are implemented, the digital service taxes should be abolished. And therefore, I think that at this stage, my opinion is that is a bit premature to envisage, I would say, a kind of support to countries in the implementation of the taxation of digital economy, as long as the model rules, and the debate around Pillar 1 is not finalized.
Thank you. Thank you,
So
Valerio.
so if I understand, it's like that means we still at the premature level, and then we need many more ways to go when talking about implementing the taxation in sub-Saharan countries. Is that so?
Thank you. Just to clarify, so just to focus on the current, the topic, which is mainly the TIWB's help developing countries on mobilizing the tax revenues and building capacity. And as I said, we will contribute to the broader work which is done under the OECD in terms of the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 to support the countries. So Pillar 1 would be bring data international tax rules into 21st century, I think, by offering market jurisdictions new taxing rights over MNEs, whether or not there is a physical presence. So so there is a global minimum rule which was agreed most of the countries, and I think that definitely everyone will benefit from this. It's about a fair taxation, right? So and it's that's why we're saying that it's a new chapter for this. For all countries, for sub-Saharan Africa, for developed countries, for developing countries. So some countries will lose, some countries will gain, but at the end of the day, it's a matter of the modern rules and designing the international tax according to the needs and the challenges and to the we're facing in the 21st century. So thank you very much for asking the questions. I think there will be sessions dedicated particularly on the digitalization of tax administrations, and we can cover in depth all the the aspects of growth, unless there is anyone in the audience so wants to from the OECD to respond. If this is not the case, I will move to another speaker. So, and maybe as we have the honor having John Christensen with us, so I would like to, ask the question to John. To reflect on what makes the TIWB different from other capacity building initiatives, and how would you like to see the TIWB expand in 2022? Thank you.
Right, thanks. Thank you, Rosalind. I hope you can all hear me. So look, Tax Inspectors Without Borders is not the first organization to work on capacity building on tax matters, but I think TIWB has various qualities which distinguish it from other initiatives. And so one key feature, which I mentioned earlier, is that this program is led by the needs, by the clearly identified needs of the host country. This is demand-led rather than supply-led. And since those needs inevitably vary from one country to the other and from one sector to another, the ability of the Tax Inspectors Without Borders Secretariat to match the needs of the host country tax administration to the experience of our roster experts is crucial to our success. And obviously that includes bringing in experts to the roster covering some of the areas that have just been mentioned. For example, the digital economy, which I think is going to increasingly pose demands upon us. So this is a case of matching demand to supply and ensuring that we continue to have the necessary expertise. Now, and another key area, I think, which distinguishes TIWB from other capacity building exercises has been our commitment to develop and deliver on South-South programs. That is where the expertise is provided by countries from the South. And if you look from a standing start just a few years ago, very few years ago, we have already engaged on I think it's on 20 South-South support programs, 8 of which have now been completed, and 12 of them are still current and underway. And the majority of these have involved tax audits, but we've also seen work being carried out on these South-South collaborative programs, looking at developing industry-specific expertise and recently working on criminal investigations. And this is new work for us. Now, in terms of what's next for 2022, Resident, I'm hoping this will be the year when we can start to rebuild our in-country support and reduce, the restrictions that have been imposed on our work by the COVID pandemic. I think we all recognize that virtual meetings have provided a very effective tool during the peak of the emergency, but virtual meetings are not a substitute for physical meetings and the kinds of training and support that are best delivered by actually being in the room. Now, I don't think that 2022 is the time for revolutionary changes in what we deliver, but I do think that 2022 presents us with opportunities to diversify across a wider range of sectors and to broaden some of the scope of the work we do, particularly, and you mentioned this earlier, identifying and curbing illicit financial flows and international tax evasion. These continue to be areas that present huge challenges to tax administrations, and I'm sure that we can continue to support and strengthen their capacity to tackle these problems. So I think that these are the challenges that we can address in 2022.
Thank you so much, indeed. I think you're very well, guided and took us through the whole journey of the TIWB from the beginning until so the current, the present, and so you very well said that it will not be maybe the revolution of the year for us, but there is a lot to explore and to improve and enhance in order to help developing countries effectively fight against tax avoidance and tax evasion. And you very correctly said that TIWB complements to the broader work which is done by the international players in tax arena. And this previous question reminds me that the new era, which is the digitalization of tax administrations, will open the new opportunities for the initiative and the Secretariat to add and build on already the values and the expertise we provide to the countries to diversify our services and address the country's demand. So it is not my area of expertise, but I still feel that, so I was not covering fully the question was asked by previous speaker, so that just to summarize and say that under the Pillar 1, taxing rights on more than 120 billion of the profits are expected to be relocated to market jurisdictions each year, and with respect to Pillar 2, with a minimum rate of 15%, the global minimum tax is estimated to generate around 150 billion in additional global tax revenues per year. I think indeed this is historic changes, and we're glad to play a micro role, but still provide assistance to the countries to materialize all these new rules, which is worked by the OECD and other players. So to quickly wrap up, I think that was very insightful and very interesting, the discussions we had. And again, I would like to thank our speakers for their time. And I think that we actually have to study the present in the light of the past for the purpose of the future. And indeed, I think that since its inception, the TIWB initiative has demonstrated impressive flexibility to meet the developing countries' demand. Even as the world moves beyond the pandemic, the challenges will not subside. And 2021, 2022 has already presented additional pressures stressing taxation capacities of countries. So the TIWB stands to assist developing country tax administrations to meet these challenges in cooperation with experienced partner administrations and other international development partners. Thank you to our esteemed speakers, participants, and OECD UNDP team, and interpreters for their great work. Thank you for being with us today. And please join the other sessions today and tomorrow. There will be very interesting and fruitful discussions you can enjoy these days. Thank you and goodbye.